The surveillance footage that was captured inside of a Los Angeles hotel in 2016 allegedly shows Combs assaulting then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura in a hallway.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. Disgusting.
He sold the dream, the designer suits, the parties, and the power. Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just a rapper, he was hip-hop royalty. A billionaire mogul, honored by mayors, praised by peers, and celebrated by the same cities that would later erase his name from their walls. But behind the empire was a darker story waiting to break wide open. In just 2 years, everything changed. The lawsuits, the federal raids, the corporate exits, and finally, the guilty verdict that stunned the world. He was accused by multiple women of rape, assault, and sex trafficking. His businesses fell apart. His partnerships ended overnight. The empire he built on music, fame, and influence began to crumble piece by piece. Combs was once the undisputed king of hip-hop, a man worth nearly $1 billion standing beside presidents and icons receiving the key to New York City in 2023. But now, that empire lies in ruins. In the past 2 years, he's been sued by at least 5 women for sexual violence, stepped down from his companies, watched federal agents raid his homes, and ultimately heard a jury foreperson declare him guilty on felony charges. How did the man who once rapped "Can't Stop, Won't Stop" end up here? Hi, I'm Status Unmasked, where we expose stories behind the spotlight, and this is the collapse of the Sean Diddy Combs empire and legal fallout. To understand the fall, we have to remember the rise. Sean Combs wasn't always Diddy. Long before the mansions, the fame, and the billion-dollar image, he was a young music hustler with something to prove. He started out at Uptown Records, running errands, spotting talent, and learning how to build stars. By the time he was 23, he had already launched his own label, Bad Boy Entertainment, in 1993. It was more than a record label. It was a movement. With artists like the Notorious B.I.G., Faith Evans, and Mace, Combs reshaped the sound of hip-hop and brought luxury, swagger, and street storytelling together in a way the world hadn't seen before. But even at the height of that success, the shadows were already forming. Fame came fast, and so did controversy. In 1999, during a night out at a Manhattan nightclub with Jennifer Lopez, a shooting broke out. 3 bystanders were injured. Police found a loaded gun in the car Combs was driving, and prosecutors charged him with gun possession, a case that could have sent him to prison for up to 15 years. In the courtroom, his lawyers fought hard. His rising star hung in the balance, and when the verdict came, Combs walked free. His protege, the rapper Shine, wasn't so lucky. He went to prison instead. Outside the courthouse, Combs smiled for the cameras and thanked God. It was his first major brush with the law, and it wouldn't be his last, but in that moment, he seemed unstoppable. The bad boy for life who had beaten the system and kept his empire intact. Sean Combs turned fame into a business model. By the early 2000s, he wasn't just producing hits, he was building an empire. The music mogul became a fashion icon with his Sean John clothing line, which won a CFDA award in 2004. His brand was everywhere. Luxury suits, fragrances, and glossy magazine covers that made Puff Daddy a symbol of success. Then came the real money. In 2007, Combs signed a groundbreaking partnership with Ciroc Vodka, helping market the brand directly to hip-hop culture and nightlife audiences. The deal turned out to be one of the most lucrative in the industry, earning him hundreds of millions and redefining what it meant to be a hip-hop entrepreneur. He didn't stop there. In 2013, he launched Revolt TV, a network meant to amplify black culture and give artists a voice beyond the mainstream. To the world, it looked like Combs could do no wrong. Music, fashion, alcohol, television, everything he touched turned to gold. By 2022, his estimated net worth had climbed close to $900 million. That same year, he received a Lifetime Achievement Award at the BET Awards, a tribute to decades of dominance. During his acceptance speech, he thanked several people who helped shape his career, but one line stood out. He thanked Cassie, his former girlfriend, for holding me down in the dark times. It was a brief, almost throwaway phrase, but it carried weight. In that moment of celebration, few realized those words were foreshadowing something much darker beneath the surface. Cassie's silence hid a story that would one day shake his entire empire. Cassie Ventura was only 19 when she met a 37-year-old Sean Combs. She just signed to his Bad Boy label, ready to chase her music dreams. To the world, she was his glamorous girlfriend, always smiling on red carpets, in music videos, by his side at the Met Gala. But behind all that shine, Cassie says she was living through something far darker. In 2023, she filed a bombshell lawsuit that finally told her side of the story. In her words, "For over a decade, I was trapped by Mr. Combs in a cycle of abuse, violence, and sex trafficking. She claimed Diddy controlled nearly every part of her life, what she did, where she went, even who she could talk to, and turned violent whenever she pushed back. One of the most disturbing parts of her lawsuit described what Combs allegedly called freak-offs. These were explicit, orchestrated encounters he forced Cassie to arrange with other people while he watched or filmed. According to her complaint, they happened at hotels across Los Angeles, New York, and Miami, sometimes every single week. Then, in 2024, the world saw just a glimpse of what Cassie had been talking about. CNN released hotel surveillance footage from 2016 showing Combs grabbing her, throwing her to the ground, and kicking her. The clip shocked fans everywhere and made the lawsuit's claims feel horrifyingly real. Soon after, Combs released a video apology saying, "My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility. I'm disgusted by it then. I'm disgusted by it now."
I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy and go into rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry.
But by that point, the damage was done. Cassie had already spoken up, and her voice opened the floodgates. Her lawsuit wasn't just a personal story, it became the turning point that made people finally start asking, what was really happening behind the doors of Diddy's empire? Cassie's lawsuit in November 2023 hit like a nuclear blast. The details were so graphic, so damning, that within just one day, Combs settled the case. That kind of speed is almost unheard of for a lawsuit that serious. But instead of ending the story, that quick settlement only set off an avalanche, because once Cassie spoke up, others started to come forward too. Within days, 2 more women filed lawsuits against Combs, right before New York's 1-year Adult Survivors Act window for old sexual assault claims was about to close. One woman, Liza Gardner, claimed that back in the early 1990s, Combs and R&B singer Aaron Hall raped her and a friend. Another woman, Joy Dickerson Neal, said that when she was a college student in 1991, Combs drugged and sexually assaulted her and even recorded it on video. Combs' legal team called these stories fabricated money grabs, but the timing and the pattern looked bad, really bad. 3 separate women, spanning more than a decade, all painting the same disturbing picture. And then came the 4th lawsuit, the one that stunned even people who'd followed the case closely. A woman identified only as Jane Doe came forward and said that in 2003, when she was just 17, Combs and 2 associates lured her from Detroit to New York, drugged her, and gang raped her inside his studio. She said she even had photos showing she was with Combs that night. Combs finally spoke out online, posting, "Enough is enough. I did not do any of these awful things." But by then, it was too late. Something even more serious was waiting around the corner. Federal agents and criminal charges that would turn Diddy's downfall from scandal to full-blown legal catastrophe. While the world was still processing the lawsuits, federal agents were already moving in the shadows. Behind the scenes, prosecutors in New York had quietly opened a criminal investigation into Diddy, with Homeland Security agents digging into allegations of sex trafficking, abuse, and intimidation. Then on March 25, 2024, everything went public. In a coordinated strike, federal agents raided Combs' mansions in both Los Angeles and Miami at the same time. Aerial footage showed armed officers swarming his Star Island estate, seizing phones, computers, hard drives, controlled substances, several unregistered firearms, 200 bottles of baby oil, and 900 bottles of lube. Anything that could serve as evidence in what officials later confirmed was an ongoing sex trafficking probe. Not long after, a federal grand jury was convened in the Southern District of New York. Their task was to determine whether Combs had used his businesses and staff to recruit, exploit, and silence victims, essentially running a criminal network behind his music and lifestyle brands. 6 months later, the grand jury returned a stunning result. Combs was indicted on 3 felony charges: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, transportation of individuals for prostitution under the Federal Mann Act. In plain terms, the US government was accusing Diddy of running a coordinated criminal enterprise, the kind of charge once used to bring down mob bosses. On September 16, 2024, Combs was arrested in New York. Cameras captured the scene. The same man once known for luxury parties and red carpets was now in handcuffs, facing a potential lifetime in prison. At a press conference, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said, "For years, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced women, using his business empire to conceal his conduct." The indictment was jaw-dropping in its scope. It even referenced the infamous freak-offs by name, calling them elaborate sexual performances that Combs organized, recorded, and used to control his victims. Prosecutors also cited acts of intimidation, including a 2012 car bombing allegedly carried out to send a message, and reports of Combs brandishing firearms to scare potential witnesses. When he appeared in court for his arraignment, the image was unforgettable. Combs in a dark suit, stone-faced as the charges were read aloud. He pleaded not guilty, but the judge denied bail, citing him as both a flight risk and a potential danger to witnesses. The mogul who wants to find the phrase, "can't stop, won't stop," was now sitting behind bars, and his trial was about to expose the full scale of what prosecutors called the Combs enterprise. In May 2025, the story reached its climax. Diddy, once the king of hip-hop, finally faced a jury in federal court in Manhattan. Outside the courthouse, reporters packed the sidewalks, cameras flashing as the man once called the mogul of moguls walked in to face justice. Inside, it was the people versus Puff Daddy, literally. For weeks, prosecutors built their case, witness by witness. Several of the same women who had filed civil lawsuits now took the stand under oath. Cassie Ventura testified for days, recounting the years of alleged abuse and control. The courtroom sat in silence as jurors watched the hotel security footage showing Combs attacking her. The same video the world had already seen, along with photos of bruises she said he gave her. Then the shocker, Kid Cudi. He testified that in 2012, after Combs learned about his brief relationship with Cassie, Combs broke into Cudi's Hollywood Hills home and later orchestrated the firebombing of his Porsche. Prosecutors showed photos of the charred car and arson reports to establish intent, arguing it fit a pattern of intimidation. Cudi told jurors that he received a chilling message afterward, warning him to never cross the wrong man again. Previous workplace misconduct allegations also surfaced at trial, including the civil case brought by his personal chef Cindy Rueda, accusing Combs of sexual harassment, retaliation, and a hostile work environment. Court filings and Rueda's sworn statements say she was routinely asked to serve meals immediately after Combs and guests had engaged in sexual activity, often while they were still nude, and that one male guest approached her unclothed and asked her to admire him. Rueda said she was later terminated after complaining about unpaid overtime and inappropriate conditions. Combs' representatives dismissed the lawsuit as baseless, but records show it was settled privately in 2019. The prosecution's story was simple and devastating. Sean Combs was a predator who used his fame, money, and influence, and even his employees, to trap, exploit, and silence women. They said what he built wasn't just a music empire, but a network that enabled his worst behavior. The defense fired back just as hard. They admitted Combs could be volatile in his personal life, but they denied any organized criminal conspiracy. His lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, argued that the relationships were consensual. Complicated, yes, but voluntary. There was no trafficking, no enterprise, he told the jury. Just adult relationships that ended badly. It was a risky strategy, one that leaned on doubt, not denial, and after weeks of testimony and tense deliberations, the jury returned a split verdict. Combs was acquitted of the most serious charges, racketeering and sex trafficking, which could have put him away for life, but he wasn't walking free. The jury convicted him on 2 lesser counts under the Mann Act, finding that he had arranged and paid for people to travel across state lines for sexual encounters. Outside the courthouse, reactions were divided. Combs' lawyer told reporters they were pleased the major charges didn't stick, and vowed to appeal the rest. Survivor advocates, on the other hand, said justice was only halfway served. Fast forward to October 2025, Combs, once a billionaire, now a convicted felon, stood before a federal judge in New York to learn his fate. The courtroom was packed, cameras were banned, but sketch artists captured the moment. Combs in a tan prison jumpsuit, silent, staring straight ahead. Several of his accusers, including Cassie Ventura, were in the gallery. When the judge spoke, the room went still. Judge Arun Subramanian looked directly at the women who had testified. "You've been through abuse many of us can't imagine," he said. "We heard you." Then he turned to Combs to deliver the sentence: 50 months in federal prison and a $500,000 fine. Not the decades prosecutors sought, but still a stunning fall for one of music's most powerful men. Outside the courthouse, Cassie's legal team spoke to reporters. "Nothing can undo the trauma," her attorney said, reading from her statement, "but this acknowledges the truth and the bravery it took to face it. Cassie will continue healing, knowing she wasn't alone." Even before the final verdict, the fallout was already underway. As lawsuits stacked up and new accusations surfaced, corporate partners began distancing themselves. Diageo officially cut ties, terminated licensing agreements, and took full control of Ciroc and De Leon tequila brand. Retailers quietly pulled Sean John merchandise from shelves. Revolt TV, once his proudest media venture, announced temporary restructuring, removing Combs from all executive titles. Advertisers pulled out, and a week after Cassie's lawsuit, the company stressed he hadn't been involved in day-to-day operations. Translation: Revolt will be fine without him. Streaming platforms and radio networks reduced his presence on curated playlists under policies tied to criminal convictions, and Peloton and other fitness brands deleted licensed tracks featuring his name. Collaborating artists reissued music without his credits or publicly backed survivors. Then came the symbolic blows. New York City handed Diddy the key to the city in September 2023. By June 2024, the same mayor revoked it. Miami Beach erased Diddy Day. Institutions fell in line. Universities rescinded honorary degrees, cities pulled ceremonial honors, and clips of plaques being unscrewed and carried out went viral, a public scrub of his image. Financial analysts traced the collapse in numbers. His estimated net worth, once near $1 billion, dropped sharply due to brand terminations, asset liquidations, and mounting legal fees. Meanwhile, streaming platforms and TV networks began developing documentaries chronicling his rise and downfall, ensuring that the narrative would remain alive for years. Sean Combs' name, once synonymous with hustle and glamour, is now tied to downfall and disgrace. He sold the American dream, then watched it collapse under the weight of his own action. Partners walked, endorsements died, the empire shuttered or sold. For years, power insulated him, but power without accountability always breaks. The lesson isn't just about one mogul, it's about an industry that looked away until the receipts piled up. In the end, the parties fade, the plaques come down, and only the record remains. Actions outrun image. Consequences catch up.